How's today?
Perfect. Amazing.
Tough for a stretch.
Tabitha says tough. Explain.
So the heat was completely insane, and there were areas like just going up to the summits, and a short while coming back was punitive. That's a fact. But the rest of the way when the sun went down, awesome.
How was the view?
No, great views. I can't say I was just like taking them in shortly because again I was completely drained. But some awesome views. We did have great views. Perhaps if the sun wasn't so punitive, we'd have enjoyed them more.
Okay, so what would you say was your take home today?
Oh my God! I think if you're going up, hiking, climbing hills, mountains, my God, the endurance levels. I think we've done, even mentally, because there are points where we had to be crawling just to get through them, is something I can't describe. Like, it really does something for your endurance levels. And you have to go up and down, so there's no shortcuts. So that's really something.
Okay. So today we're talking about coping mechanisms, and commonly what happens is people confuse coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms. Coping mechanisms is basically what we instill to deal with stressful situations or recent trauma, or just a difficult moment that's coming. How you deal with that situation. That's whatever you use to do that. That's what we call coping mechanisms. How would you say you coped with the climb today? Because I'm sure at some point all of us did some kind of self-talk, a committing, trying to see how do I get to the next level. The part where we're all crawling, that wasn't nice at all, I have to say. So I'd like to know what kept you going.
Today was very interesting. Also because I think I have gained a little more confidence from Gong Hills. So today it was harder, but I had this thing in my head that I can do it. So I did it because if I did Gong, then I can do this. Then I had my two little girls who are super awesome, superheroes. And at some point they were struggling like the rest of us, of course. And I think because this is the first time they're doing something like this, they were like, oh, can we do this? Because there are all these people up ahead and, this is really tiring and we have a long distance to go. So I told them that this kind of thing is it's about completion, not competition. So you get there. Don't worry about how the other person is doing it. Don't worry if you're getting the disease. Don't worry if you need to sit down. You sit down if you need to. And I think they also help me cope a lot because once in a while they'd get, not even once in a while actually, most of the time they'd get this serious burst of energy and then they'd be off. And then I'm like, if those ones can do it, then of course I can do it. So I think today they've been my serious coping mechanism. Because I think I was feeling responsible for them. I was feeling like they will be so proud of themselves if they make it to the peak. And then they did it, and then they did it some more. So the two girls were my coping mechanism today. At some point I was like, hey, the dust. Have you seen the dust? So yeah, that's it.
I think for me, the coping is just more of the mental strength. What you put in your mind and you keep at it, you'll achieve it. So for me, it's more the mental strength.
To summarize it, today we'll talk about coping mechanisms, and they come in you can look at them as healthy coping mechanisms and unhealthy coping mechanisms, or what some may call adaptive and maladaptive. If I recall what Shiko has talked about, her being there for the girls, encouraging them that it's about completion and not competition. That to me is support, which is one of the healthy coping mechanisms. Being there for one another when someone is going through a hard time, taking that time. There's a point when Tabby was sitting because at some point she got, the heat was too much, and we would wait. Let's be honest, we were happy to wait because even our heartbeats were really high, but you know, we didn't want to leave anybody behind. And that's one thing I love about this group. When someone is struggling, we take time. In as much as we're able to rush, we take time. And even the zebras have come to learn about coping mechanisms today. So yeah, support is one, relaxation is another one, the healthy or adaptive coping mechanisms. Humor, how many times did you make fun when things got so hard? You know, trying to bring about humor to try and lessen the impact of whatever difficult situation you're going through. And this happens even in mental health. When you're having a hard time, this is what you apply. Physical activities, we engage in a gruesome but beautiful physical activity, mountaineering. And at some point I was talking to Shiko and I was telling her, it's interesting we chose hiking and to talk about mental health, because there's a point you get to, before we got to the summit and where we were doing our all fours, and if I'm not wrong, majority of people are asking themselves, do we have to? Do we really have to finish this? And the same happens when you think about mental health challenges. When you're going through the healing process, either therapy, medication, or that journey, it's not easy. But you can't stop in the middle. You have to get to the end where is you get the help, where you get the care. You know, so these are the coping mechanisms that we use in our day-to-day life to deal with the stresses that come along. Problem solving. How do we deal with a situation? When something happens, like when you're faced with a stressful factor, let's take again the same mountaineering experience. You get to a point and you're thinking, okay, I'm tired, I need to sit. The longer you sit, the colder your muscles get. The harder it's going to be for you to get up and move. So what were we doing? Take small breaths. When you feel, okay, my heart rate has gone down a bit, I can move a bit more, you know. So finding a solution, looking at the problem and, okay, how am I going to do this? I'm going to walk for every 2 minutes, 1 minute I stop, take a break. You know, finding solutions to the problem that's already at hand. We'll talk more about this as we continue hanging out, but just to mention quickly the maladaptive ones or the unhealthy coping mechanisms. What do we have? Do you have any suggestions, any ideas what that could be? How do we cope?
Substances?
Yes, use of substance, yes. Which is
Doing nothing about it.
ignorance, trying to avoid. That's actually avoidance or escaping the situation. Saying, it's okay, trying to ignore it, but it doesn't really go away. It actually finds you. The other one is numbing. You know, like when you use substances, you're trying to ignore the situation, or like trying to postpone or to numb the pain that you're going through, the difficult moment. At the time, it feels like it's working, but in the morning, what happens? You wake up, the problem is still right there. At times, you've fought with people around you because they're not happy with what you're doing. So there's, of course, that social pressure that comes in. The pocket also doesn't smile when you end up using it. It becomes expensive. It's not something you can sustain for the long run. Risk-taking and compulsions. You know, I think we've seen some people. This is a bit common with our uniformed officers when they come from wars and such things, because of the kind of trauma they face. To them, life is, you live today, any minute now you could be gone. So you'll find they're engaging in risky behaviors like drinking and driving, just living it for the moment, not thinking about tomorrow. And the same is also happening with the younger generation, which is why I think we're talking more about this, because we want them to come up with healthier coping mechanisms, because stresses will be there. Good stresses, bad stresses. But what do we do when they come? It's one of the things we are trying to advocate. When there's pressure, when you're trying to figure out how to cope with difficult situations, look for someone, support. There's always someone who will listen to you. Look for the healthy ways of coping with it. Identify what is causing the stress in the first place. see how you can be able to come up with a solution. And if you're not able to do it yourself, there's always help. Yeah, so there's no shame in asking for help. That's a message going out there.